Good afternoon everyone, and today I'm working on a pair of Rogers LS360s. Not the first pair of these I've ever worked on, so I know them reasonably well, and these were brought in from quite a distance away by a chap called David, and yeah, they've got a few problems. This particular one, the super tweeter isn't working, so we need to dig into that and have a look at them, and both of them have got a few other little issues, but nothing too major, and they really are in lovely condition. It wouldn't hurt them to be sanded back and re-oiled. We've got the original cloth, which doesn't have any tears in it, and it's pretty clean. I think David's quite keen to retain that, keep the look. So yeah, so they're a two-way speaker, but with a super tweeter. Not a three-way, not a 2.5 way, two-way super tweeter, however you want to look at that. So we have a woofer, which in the case of this one is, I think it's Rogers' own make. We'll look when we take the back off. A Celestion HF 1300 tweeter, which plays, I think, up to about, it's either 9 or 12 kilohertz, can't remember. And then we have a Celestion HF 2000 super tweeter at the top. They are a sealed cabinet, although they do have a little square port, but that's about it really. Crossover is quite complex, and these use an auto transformer as well to allow the when they were being made, for the engineer to voice them and get the levels correct whilst maintaining impedance for the amplifier. So yeah, they're quite a special speaker really. So yeah, they're in good condition. And really, I've got to get them working properly, because they're not at the moment. So what I'll do, we'll take the back off and have a look inside there, and I will put the measurements I took for the pair of them up now, so you can have a look at those, and then we'll have a look inside. So before we take the back off, there's a closer look. Yeah, so a very old style speaker cloth, Rogers badge at the top here, but the trim around the front here is in really good condition. Yeah, very nice speaker, very original. So that's what I'm going to shoot for. We're not going to upgrade these or do anything silly with them. These are just going to be repaired, kept original, and possibly in the next video we will sand them back ever so carefully and re-oil them, make them look special again. So these are a matched pair. They have consecutive serial numbers, so yeah, completely original speaker plug as well. David still has the original plugs that go in there, which is fantastic. Okay, so there we go, there's the inside. So we've got foam sound deadening, and also behind this is bitumen, which kind of deadens the panels. And you can see here where it's, I think, probably been brush applied. Might have been a panel that was stuck on, but yeah, so bitumen between the plywood, then the foam. There's the little port I was talking about. So we've got Rogers 15 ohm woofer here in beautiful condition. So this is Bextrine, and then we've got the HF 1300 tweeter and the Celestion HF 2000 super tweeter. Now when I measured this particular speaker, we were rolling off at about 12,000 hertz, so no output from the super tweeter. And just looking, I found the broken wire for the crossover for the super tweeter, so that's a good sign. So on these speakers we have an auto transformer, which is not something you'd see these days. Really having something like this in the signal path is basically frowned upon, but that's what was used to make sure that these speakers could be matched in pairs. So they've got 9 different taps on them, so you can maintain the impedance that the amplifier sees. Excuse me. And then I think they're like 0.5 dB separations between, so you can make sure that the woofer, tweeter and super tweeter, you can get the output volumes correct and match in with the sister speaker. So the crossover board here is for the woofer and the tweeter. So we've got 3 inductors, and then 6 what people know as the tropical fish capacitors, 2 in parallel, 2 in parallel, 2 in parallel. So we'll check these and check the values as well. Got quite a bit of corrosion in here as well, so we need to tidy up some of these connections. And then it was added on after is this little triangular board here, which is for the super tweeter at the top. So that was almost a bit of an afterthought, I believe. So in the past, I've found these capacitors here to be completely out of tolerance, so I'm pretty sure I'll be replacing these. These capacitors, Mallard capacitors, tend to hold up really well, and we're going for originality here, so I don't want to muck around with these inductors. Yes, they're iron core, but yeah, they're not a particularly high powered speaker. So these are very good quality, as good as they could be at the time, I think. So no issues really leaving these. The wiring again, yes, something better could be put in there, but this is what they were originally, and a speaker like this, it's important to keep original. This is not the sort of speaker that you tear into and pull these out and put air core inductors in and poly caps all over the place. That's not what they're about. They're piece of speaker history, and they should be left well alone and repaired as needed, but as kept as original as you can. In order to get the front cover off, we need to undo 4 nuts inside, so we'll pop that off and have a look at the fronts of the drivers. So before we get started, it's quite evident that someone's been in here before. Obviously got their fingers covered in the bitumen that's behind the felt or the foam, and yeah, managed to get it all over the place. Yeah, easily done. Yeah, you've got to be a bit careful of that in these. Right, so the cover's off. Here we go. There's the cover, and as you can see, the material colour here is kind of black with a gold weave, but if you look at the front, that's really changed colour. So I assume that's what they would have been like originally. This, I don't think that's original. I can't see that being original. It's pretty ripped up, the way that's been cut. Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing that on any others. So 4 studs hold this onto the front. So there we go. So our Rogers Bextreme woofer, original surround, which is in good condition, no rips or anything like that. Cone's still nice and free. All the original fixings, original screws. These don't look like they've had a screwdriver blade in them at all. So yeah, very nice. So our HF 1300 and our HF 2000 beautiful condition. Same with that. Like I say, the little port there. We've lost one of our captive nuts there, so might be the case that that screw is loose inside. So we'll check that, because one thing I did see in the measurements was a bit of ringing, vibration. So something like that could be causing that. But yeah, the front baffle is unmolested. Very nice to see. So yeah, the moulding around the side is in lovely condition. So I think what we'll do, we'll clean this with some compressed air, because David wants to keep this as it is. This I think we'll remove, because that is not original, and probably dulls off the HF a little bit. So you can see it's been, the super tweeter has been pushing against it there. You can see the outline, so that needs to come off. Yeah, okay, excellent. Right, so while we've got the back off, let's have a look inside and inspect all the connections and bits and pieces. There is one or two that are looking a bit suspect. The connections here on the 1300, that's coming away. We've only got 2 or 3 strands holding that on, and the negative as well is splitting away. Woofer's good. Got this jumper here, not too bad. Yep, so we need to find where our supply for the super tweeter was soldered on before, because none of those look like they've been used, other than this one. So on these, the feed into the high pass and low pass sections of the crossover are through X and Y, and then picking up whichever one is required. So yeah, that's broken off. I think it's broken off from there. So it was actually on the same tap as the tweeter. It's really difficult to tell. Yeah, I would say it was there. But yeah, I'll probably take this out, I think, and give everything a test up. Like I say, I'm pretty sure these capacitors will probably want changing on the super tweeter, but dig into that and have a look. So I've just popped the back off the other speaker, which I'll work on later, really to have a look to see where they'd connected the super tweeter, and it is on the yellow. So we were, yeah, both of them are the same, which is pretty good. So at least we know where that's going to go. Obviously we're going to measure these again afterwards, and if we need to adjust that slightly, we will. Yeah, we've got a few issues with wiring in this, but this is the main problem. The tweeter has been replaced. Oh no, got the super tweeter at the top, the wires are just twisted together. You might not be able to see that. Let me just move you up. So that's the original negative, and it's just been twisted round white wire. Soldered connection on that, so we need to repair that, and also little lead wires coming off the 1300. Ooh, that's all loose in there. Yeah. Okay, so actually, whilst the other speaker didn't have any top end, and we found the problem with that, this one in the measurements did have some issues whilst it worked. So I think we've probably found a lot of culprits for that. Also, that being loose, there's a chance that isn't the right tweeter. We do have some spares that David has dropped off as well. So yeah, this one's probably going to need more work, but yeah, we'll crack on with the other one first. Right, so hopefully you can see and hear reasonably well. So these are our positive and negative in. So what we will do is desolder our super tweeter and its supply. This will also give us the opportunity to DC resistance test them too. Okay. I've got a new soldering iron and I'm not too convinced yet. It seems pretty good. I'm not too sure. Right. Okay, that's our super tweeter board, which I am led to understand was an add-on. There is a website by Mark Hennessy where there is tons of history on these speakers, so go and check that out. Yeah, so we got a 1 microfarad and a 1 microfarad, and these don't actually physically look too bad. We've got a little resistor there as well, 15 ohm. So obviously I'm not going to do any remedial work to these until I've spoken to David, but I would recommend we replace both of these and that resistor as well. We'll test the inductor too, make sure that they're not breaking down, they haven't gone brittle or anything. So yeah, there you go, simple third order super tweeter board. Okay. We want to desolder our woofer and our tweeter. If I can get in there. Right. Come on, that's it. Alright, so that's the woofer. And the wires to the 1300 need remaking off as well anyway. Okay. As you can see, they're pretty gnarled up, so I'm guessing someone has been at those before, possibly. Right. I think it's 6 screws to get this out, if I remember. Yeah, so like I say, these aren't the sort of speaker you want to be mucking around with upgrading. These are, along with a few other speakers like the LS3 5A, things like that, speaker history. Maintain them, don't change them. That's my view. Okay. Right. So let's take all these out, and then I'll move the cabinet and we can take a good look at the crossover. Right, okay. So there's our crossover for the woofer and the tweeter. Auto transformer, 1, 2, 3 inductors, a 33 ohm resistor. Yep, it's not 3.3. And then we've got our capacitors here. These are quite tricky to read. There is 5 stripes on them. Sometimes just 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5. The first 2 colour bands tell you the number. So it could be, say, a 2 and a 3, 23. The third band is the multiplier. So what you do with that 23, how you multiply it to get the value of the capacitor. The fourth is the tolerance, and sometimes you don't see that. And the fifth is the voltage rating, and again, sometimes you don't see that. And they can be tricky to read sometimes, especially if you've got 2 colours that are the same side by side. It can make you think that they're actually 4 colours when they're 5, so they are quite tricky to read. But I'll have a look at these. So they're all the same, I remember that. And we've got brown. Get my pen to work. Then I think it's green and green. White. And then red. I think white's 10% and red is 250 volt, might be wrong. Brown 3, I think. Can't remember. Anyway, I will confirm that now. Yeah, so they're 1.5 microfarad each. That's right, I remember, because they add up to make 3. That's probably where I got the 3.3 from. So yeah, we got 3, 3 and 3, 1.5 each. And yeah, voltage range is, rating is 250 volt. So I have to be ever so careful with these because they can split quite easily. And if they're measuring okay, then I want to leave these because in many a speaker I've worked on, when I've come across these tropical fish caps, mallard caps, they're 9 times out of 10 absolutely fine. So I don't want to muck around with them if they're okay, but I want to test the inductors and I do want to try and test these somehow. So hopefully if I take the legs of the inductors out, hopefully we won't have any issues and we can measure them properly. Right, let's see if we can measure these inductors first. Now I've got a leg lifted up on them. Might be a bit tricky. I can see the traces, so I can see what's going where. .83 millihenry on that one. Okay. Right, where can I pick up the... Not going to be particularly easy, this. There we go. 0.2 millihenries. Very small. And then this one here. So we can pick up one leg off there. .86. Okay. So I'll map this out, but early impressions are we've got a third order on the woofer and on the tweeter. Right, see what we can do with these caps. See if we can test those somehow. Like I say, I don't want to disturb them, so let's see if I can test these at the top first. So I'm looking for about 3. Yep, 2.8. Okay, that's good. So I can also test these. I have to hold that on there, which isn't ideal, but let's see. As long as I'm in the ballpark. 2.8. Yep, okay. And then the sat at the bottom, I can pick up there and there. Let's try that. Okay. Let's try over here. Yep, 2.8 again. Okay. Alright, so I'm, without disturbing those capacitors, I'm pretty happy with those. So I want to leave those. So what I'll do now is put the inductor legs back in and solder them back up. Okay, so I've just tested that resistor as well. That is indeed 33 ohms, and that is all good. There we go. It's quite tricky sometimes to get the puddle across. Okay, properly soldered back up again. Right, so while I've got this here, I'm going to draw out the crossover. Right. So we take a look at our little super tweeter board and excuse me, see what we got going on there. So if I can, I'll lift everything up in the middle. Right, okay, so we've lifted up a leg on every component. So let's have a look at these capacitors first. Mm, 964 nanofarads, so 0.96 microfarads, so that's okay. That is okay. And this one, .02 microfarads. Yeah, they're good. And our inductor, .03. And what about our resistor? If I can get on the thing. Okay. Should be 15. 15.1. Right, so component wise on this board, absolutely fine. So assuming we have the same result on the other one, I probably won't touch this because everything is in spec and original. So yeah, I think we'll just put this back together. Right, so all back together, and yeah, really nothing wrong with that. So on this particular speaker we are good. We found out why the super tweeter wasn't working, literally a broken off wire. The other speaker we've got a few wiring issues with. I'll go through this process again on the other speaker to test all the components and make sure everything's good. Obviously if I find a problem on the other speaker and I need to change components on it, and I use something different to what's already on here, so for example if I find these two or one of them out of tolerance on the other speaker, I'll be replacing both of these, even though these are okay, and both of them on the other, so we still match, but otherwise they'll be left alone. Okay, so I'm going to put this back together, leave this video there, talk to David about the cabinet, whether he wants me to sand that back and re-oil it, and also what he wants to do with the speaker cloth. So in part 2 we'll do the other speaker, and if we are sanding back the cabinets and redoing the cloth we'll do that then. Otherwise it'll be final testing in the second video and hopefully a few sound clips. Not that you're gonna really appreciate these speakers through YouTube, but yeah, there we go. Okay guys, thanks for watching.